And hey, David, I don't want to stumble into this really quick, but how cool is it to kind of have a name like David Ortiz, the baseball player? Yeah.
Honestly, yeah, honestly, I do get a lot of questions about that. And most of the questions come back to if I'm his estranged son or maybe a nephew of some sort. And but the most of the time it just comes back to asking if I'm Dominican as well. So there's that.
Yeah.
And the assumption that I play baseball. I've never played baseball before, so it's always a conversation starter, but always
That's
a really
awesome.
short conversation on that topic.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
David, how have you been? I know you have quite a resume. We'll get to that in a bit, but as far as uh, the pandemic, ongoing pandemic we got going on here, I know some things have starting to loosen up as far as restrictions. How have you been, man? How have you been dealing with this? I know you just got back yesterday. You said to the Valley. How have you been during this unique time?
Yeah, as of right now, it's been a whirlwind for everybody involved, from people working in the healthcare industry to people working in agriculture to people that that are non-essential workers. It's a very big waiting game as of right now. But for me individually, it's just been a day-to-day process. All I've been able to do is just continue working and continue working out. And I'm fortunate enough to, like, where I work at is I'm on a salary position, so I don't have to show up to work exactly. All I
Mhm.
have to worry about is just maintaining, working out and maintaining, like, strict diet and things of that sort.
If
And,
you don't
just
mind me,
starting with other creative endeavors.
if you don't
So
mind
yeah.
me asking, where do you work at?
Yeah, so I work at Seguin Independent School District.
Oh, okay, cool. Do
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
coach there, or are you a teacher?
Yeah, so I'm an ESL instructor.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. How do you like it? How do you like working there?
Honestly, it's pretty great. I've always liked being in school environments just because my aunt was a Spanish teacher in Harlingen at B. Garza for quite a few years. Another one of my aunts was a secretary. My cousin was a counselor, or is a counselor, over in the Edinburgh area, if I'm not mistaken. So I've always just liked the flow of, like, a school environment because it's a little more relaxed, but it's also very intense because you're going towards a goal every day, every week. There's benchmarks to attain, there's things that you're chasing. So I mean, I love it. And being around kids, it's safe to say that kids will never leave you bored. There's always something new happening every day.
Awesome, and I'm sure you're aware that some Valley teams have gone to Seguin for basketball games. Have you ever gotten a chance to take a look at those games?
No, I can't say I have. I think the closest I came was to when Santa Maria's basketball team had played against, I can't remember who they played against, but they played in San Marcos,
Hmm.
and I was able to meet the team before, the day before, and hang with them, but I had other things to do the day after or the day of the game.
No, that's
And the
awesome.
years
Yeah.
past, I wasn't able to be in the area because I was either traveling for some game or a combine of some sort. But yeah, I am aware that they've been in that area before.
Sweet. Um, yeah, you mentioned you're staying in shape, and you've got a ton of stuff as far as football goes on your resume. How have you been staying in shape as far as football goes?
And honestly, so at 23, I'm still learning a lot of different things. As far as training, a lot of my training comes back to plyometrics and weight training, things of that sort, just because of my track background. So I like to maintain explosion and things of that sort. But just recently, about a month ago, Angela Villarreal, she used to play over at Wesco, then played over at UTRGV. She introduced me to keto cycling. So there's that. And honestly, I was not aware of how bad my diet was until I started. I was a candy fiend. I was eating candy just about every day, eating a lot of junk food. And I thought that, my workouts would offset whatever I was eating.
Hmm.
I was very, very mistaken. It's been rough. It's definitely been a very big mental test, but so far so good. I mean, things have been working out the right way. Numbers are going in a positive direction. So yeah.
That's awesome. If I have to say anything about diets, it's that I'm probably not one of the good ones at it because I think I've had Whataburger. I think we can see it there. I think I've had Whataburger in the last 4 or 5 days. So I can see how the mental part of it would not probably favor me. How do you like the keto diet? I had a friend who tried it and I think he did 2 months of it. So how do you like it?
Honestly, I hated it. First, like 3 days going into it, it was the worst thing of my life. So it wasn't pushed on me. It wasn't anything of that sort. It was more of me wanting to try something new. You know, it's off season. Don't know when everything's gonna slow down and go back to normal. So I thought, let's take advantage of this time. Let's just jump into something new. No, first 3, 4 days, it was awful. Awful. I was trying to think of excuses or ways to fit like, Jolly Ranchers or extreme airheads or just different things into whatever I was eating. But as of right now, I think once you get past like the 2 week mark is when you really start looking and noticing the differences that are coming into play. So it just becomes easier to fall into the process. But I'm having to be more accountable as to like what goes into my body. So that is definitely something that I'm very mindful of now, and I'm pretty grateful for, just because food is fuel, and it's not just meant to, be there at your disposal for whenever you want to treat yourself.
Yeah,
So yeah,
cool.
definitely learning the importance of that.
So I'm guess were you a fan? This is my thing. I eat these a lot. Are you a fan of the watermelon Sour Patch Kids?
Oh yeah, definitely,
Cool.
definitely. I always kept a pack of those in my backpack. So my thing is that I would eat a bag of gummy worms or Sour Patch Kids before my workouts. That was just my pre-workout. Because in my mind, I was pretty ignorant to like the whole idea of sports nutrition. So I was thinking, I'm carbing up before I go lift. No, again, back to Angela. I had tried doing a workout with her, and her workouts are pretty intense. I was like thinking, you know what, I'm just gonna fly through it. No, I was very much mistaken. I basically almost threw up at the end of the workout because it was a WOD. It was basically like I wouldn't
You
even say it
get
was a
like a sugar
CrossFit
rush,
workout,
right?
but it was a lot of high intensity interval stuff. And I thought it was just a bad day. No, I had a lot of bad days followed after that because I realized I wasn't eating the right things and I wasn't training the right way. So I definitely began a lot more guidance in that field. And that was my favorite candy, but I guess after I finish this month of it, maybe go on a break for a couple days, eat it again at some point. But yeah, again, I have
You
to be
al-
very mindful of it now.
you always got to throw in that cheat day though.
Yeah.
um, let's get to your Santa Maria roots. I know you said you're originally are you originally from Santa Maria?
Yes. Yeah. From Santa Maria. I was born in Harlingen, Texas. And yeah, went to school here, born and raised. My grandparents are here, mom's from here. And yeah.
So yeah, talk about your. I guess we'll get into your high school career. What sports did you play? How did you? How long did it take you to get to a varsity level? Talk about that part before you got to your recruiting process. What sports did you play and all that good stuff?
Yeah. Okay. So coming out of junior high, I would say that my process was very invested into getting to the varsity level, because going to my from seventh grade into eighth grade, the coach of the high school had taken notice of me. So going to my eighth grade year, I was invited or basically mandated to go with the high school and accompany them in off-season workouts throughout the summer. So I was going every day at 12 p.m. to 3 p.m. and training with 17, 18-year-old kids, and made it a lot easier when you come back to like the reality of like your age group. And yeah, so getting back to that, coming out of junior high, definitely knew the direction I was going into. So when I came into high school, I didn't even expect to really be a starter on the team. But what happened is that during off season, turned out that I could throw a little bit, and I was named the varsity starter as a quarterback for a few weeks, maybe like the first half of the season, and then brought on, and I decided to just become a tailback and a defensive back. Stayed there. Did not get any accolades that season, but made onto the varsity starting into the starting lineup. And then that same year, I maybe ran one JV meet and then got bumped up to varsity in track and field. So I was a 4-year letterman in both sports. And my recruiting, I would say, started during my sophomore year. It really started picking up then. Yeah, I think my first look realistically was around the same time UTSA was reviving their football program. And I had started as a running back. I got my first start, and I had finished the game with about 2 touchdowns and I believe 200 something yards on the ground in my first start. Following day, going for team workouts, coach calls me in and told me that I was on UTSA's watch list. So that was my first official look, really. And then from then on, I wasn't as stressed as I thought I'd be, just because it was just a matter of time of just deciding, just let things play out as they're going to. By the time you're a senior, you're already going to know more or less where you're going, realistically, what's best for you, and go from there. And also that same year, I had started getting interest from Princeton as well.
Nice.
So yeah, just quite a few different schools coming in, and I just went from there.
So how did TOU fall? How did TOU fall in the cracks then?
So that was interesting. That's the interesting thing. Originally, my top schools of interest were Truman State and Stetson University. Truman State is a Division II in Missouri, and Stetson University was a minor Division I in Florida. And they had started looking at me my sophomore year, and I liked them just because it seemed like a realistic program and a place where I could fit into in terms of a community, things like that. But at the time, I think the big factor that came into it would have had to have been at that time in my life, my granddad, my mother's father, had bone cancer. And I wanted to stay as close as possible to, the Valley, just to spend as much time as I could with him. So realistically, I just decided that TOU was where I wanted to be, and it was probably the best place for me, if anything. And that's really where I decided in. And TOU didn't come into the play until late in my senior year, when I decided that I want to stay closer to home instead of going out of state.
So your entire time in high school, had you always realized you wanted to play football at the next level? Or is it just more like, okay, it's coming, I might as well? Or did you just have when did you realize that you wanted to play?
So I would say it came out about the time when I was around maybe around 8, 9 years old. It was around the time I had first seen Friday Night Lights, and I was just, I was always intrigued by the culture that was, in a Texas high school football locker room, and what it meant to a community, what it meant to people, and then how when you had that feeling, you just don't want to stop. I had never played organized football until I was about maybe 11 years old, and it was flag football. And even though it wasn't contact, it was still the best thing in the world for me. So realistically, I think about 8 years old, I decided that I was going to play in high school. Obviously, you have to do it, and then play in college after. I don't think it was ever a question of if, but it was a matter of where I'd end up. Just because I knew that was something I definitely wanted to do and experience at different levels.
Nice. So now you have your time at TOU. Talk about your experience there at Texas Lutheran and what you got to play and how long you were there, and then how your opportunities kind of started getting presented to you to go to the next level.
Yeah, definitely. So going into TLU, it was a really big culture shock, really, really big culture shock. Because coming out of the Valley is a lot of great athletes out here. So that's just kind of the standard, and you're just surrounded by athletes just on every corner, whether they're people that played before, your kids at your age and things of that sort. And running in track and field, I loved doing summer track, so just more opportunity to compete against athletes from other places. And I never really found myself falling behind, or it was mainly just averaging out or staying at that point. But getting to college was a very big culture shock in terms of how everyone had the same mindset of that playing college football was a job. Literally everything you do from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed is revolving around that. And in the time I was there, I was originally recruited as a defensive back, but converted to a receiver during fall camp. And yeah, I was just on the bubble, stayed there, took a lot of learning curves. Definitely took a lot of learning curves just because when you're younger, you can get away with raw athleticism or just things you've experienced before. But it becomes more of a technical game. You need to know more the ins and outs of the game rather than just going out and relying on like what you've done before. So definitely became a true student of the game there. And in 2015, really saw it come into fruition in how I didn't play a big part, but I became content with the idea of being part of a team and doing your part, I guess, like the overall team goal, which was becoming conference champs in 2015 for the SCAC. And then just seeing that pay off and seeing our national ranking go up and so on and so forth. It was a very, very enlightening experience, as well as learning how to balance that with being a student. And around that same time, I was entertaining the idea of playing overseas or looking at like where I would play at, like, should I continue my college career? And I got my first look from the Hungary Heroes, which is a team in Europe called Hungary, Hungary. And I really had to decide whether I wanted to go pro at 19 years old or come back to college and write it out. But the brotherhood that you built is something you have to honor and go through. And I realized I had a lot more growing to do if this was something I wanted to pursue long term. So I came back for another season, got converted to DB, and finished out there. And then tried transferring out from there. Didn't work out exactly. And then jumped into the American Arena League at 20 years old.
Wow, so you're relatively pretty young to be jumping into the professional leagues. So now that now this is time after TOU, and you get to play for the Austin Wild and the San Antonio Knights. What was that experience like? I know from first from a football standpoint, playing from 11-man to indoor football, there's all these different rules. I know receivers wise, you can run forward before the ball is snapped, and that counts as a motion. So talk about that process and the kind of like the switch you had to make and your time with those two teams.
So coming into playing for Austin, that was my first experience playing with a professional team and approached with a business mindset. But the dimensions of the game really do throw you off if you don't come in prepared for it. Because the tempo of the game is a lot different. In outdoor football as a receiver, you can maybe take a couple plays off here and there, and you'll be okay with it if you're like a wide out or split inside. But in the arena game, everything is 110 miles an hour, but in a controlled manner. Everything has to be intentional. And with me being a smaller guy at 5'10", I was most of the time lined up in the slot. And I had never come off of like running a motion and things of that sort. So I had to learn that I reached out to a few other guys that had played arena before me or, had played in the AFL and things of that sort. So I had to learn the dynamics of how to set up a linebacker, how to set up a safety in the right way, and you do it in an efficient manner rather than just like, going foot firing off the line and trying to make a one cut or things of that sort, rather than like, trying to stay one speed, which is your top speed through the whole play. Definitely took a lot of learning at that point, but by the time I came into camp, it was really just a matter of playing ball and adjusting to the walls and things like that.
Yeah.
And because you're playing in such a smaller place, the ball really comes at you. You really, really have to be aware of it coming at you.
So which one of those adjustments did you say was the hardest from like the field being smaller to firing off? Which one of those is kind of like the hardest thing to adjust?
It would have to be, it definitely has to be the walls or like the smaller dimensions, because, playing ball is playing ball. There's a couple of learning curves here and there, but you fall into it and you just start going with it. So it wasn't much of an issue, but the dimensions is what will mess with you. Because I know a couple times you'll think that if you're going like on a post corner, you're gonna bring the ball in, tuck it in, maybe run out of bounds. Well, sometimes you'll forget where exactly you're at. So as soon as you catch it, you're maybe like waist deep or chest deep into the wall and you're going over. And definitely feeling that you got somebody's beer on you, or you ran out of space, or you're getting slammed into it. So just about anything can happen in an arena. So definitely like just being mindful of like the space you're playing in was like the biggest adjustment for me.
How did you like playing for the Austin Wild and the Knights? What were your seasons? What were your seasons like?
Yeah, so coming in for Austin, it was really different. Year one was different compared to year two. Year one, I came in as the baby. I was really just like the baby of the group. I wasn't even old enough to drink yet, so I couldn't really do anything with teammates after practices or really much of anything. It was just go play football, practice, train, things of that sort, go to the team gym and go home. And at there, I was really a backup, learning from the veterans above me. And if I did get any chances, just try to maximize them as much as possible, just to bring it in, maybe just add to my toolbox and see what else I could pick up and bring into like next year. Year two, I was picked up by San Antonio after bouncing around a couple teams, and that experience is a lot more different in how I had that year under my belt, and everything just a lot more natural. So it was less thinking and more doing, and just became so much more automatic. Season went pretty well, all things considered. And yeah, just everything just fell into place the way it should have.
Awesome. So after your two seasons with those teams, I guess I'm assuming, because I hadn't asked you this, but was it after those 2 seasons when you got this look from this European team? Or talk about that.
Yeah, so my end goal is, after I'm done playing, is to work in a school district as a teacher and a coach. So I've always, year round, even when I was with the team, I was looking around to see, or with the agency that I'm signed with, it was always just like a matter of looking at what teams were interested in signing me. So with the team in Europe, that was just an offer that came near the end of my arena season. And we were just in negotiation for about like a few months, just looking at like what the sponsors thought, how I was feeling, what I was wanting, back and forth. And it came down between that team and another team over in Poland, I believe. But yeah, the team in Turkey was at the European Division 1 level. I thought that was best for my career, as well as an assistant coaching job at the local university for the men's football team there. Just something to add on to my resume. So that was like the biggest deciding factor for me.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's perfect because you mentioned you wanted to get some coaching under you, and that's a perfect path for you. So talk about that journey. They got in contact with you. I think the month you signed that contract was in August, correct?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
What was
And
that
yeah,
experience like for you?
yes, I can't remember the exact month, but I believe it's around August time. And as soon as you sign, you just sign on the dotted line, scan your stuff over, send it over, and then from there, all you do, get your affairs in order and get ready to go, really. But near the end, like getting closer to the season, me and management and I just started kind of having different views on things. So we kind of decided just to take a break, or just really terminate the contract for the time being. And so in the meantime, I decided I was gonna go play for the Tri-City Fire in Washington in February. But that team had unfortunately folded about 3 days before I was supposed to fly out. Then about a couple weeks later, the whole nation started shutting down, and that kind of just everything just kind of just went downhill. And so international football, as well as football in the States, was just shut down. So all pro leagues, were just put on suspension essentially.
So now I guess you're not gonna head out then to Europe. Is that what I'm understanding then?
So as far as Europe, about a couple days ago, we got back into contact with each other, and it looks like the season is going to be postponed until October. So if things open back up in terms of international travel, that's definitely where I look at going to. But if not, then I'll just stay in the States and just wait this thing out and see where I go from there, if I'm able to play anywhere within America.
Cool. So I guess my final question before we do our wrap up, how thankful are you for all these opportunities? I know, especially from a small community like Santa Maria, athletes don't get these opportunities. I can't remember a specific name, at least in my mind, that can say I've played arena football or I'm about to go play overseas. So how grateful are you? How grateful have you been for all these opportunities, man?
Words can't begin to describe how grateful I am, just because I understand playing after high school isn't exactly a given for everybody, and then playing after college is also just even more of a big toss up in the air. But the fact that I've been able to get a conference championship in the time I was in college, and I'm grateful for, and the fact that I was able to play professionally for 2 years after leaving college, before the age of 21, is another big thing. And those are two things I'm also grateful for. And being able to have the opportunity to travel internationally and play at a professional level, words can't begin to describe like where I feel I'm at, because things like that don't just happen every day for everybody. And I like to take advantage of every opportunity that I have from here on forward, just because you only have so much time to play, and it's a matter of time until the next person's up or until you have to give back to the game in terms of a coach or a mentor and so on and so forth.
Awesome. Good stuff, man. Any shout outs you want to give to your friends and family?
Yeah, definitely. So definitely have to give a shout out to Santa Maria High School. It's really the place that made me, place that raised me. My parents, especially my mom, Eliana Trevino. My best friends back home. My best friends back in New Braunfels and Seguin. And definitely just everybody else that I've met along the way or forgot to mention as of right now.
Awesome, man. Well, we appreciate you being on the show. That's David Ortiz joining us, everybody. That'll wrap up our sideline sit down for this week. We'll be back with more next week, and we'll announce those lineups over the weekend. Coming up tomorrow at 6:30, we'll have Edinburgh High's Leslie Martinez signing her letter of intent to play basketball at Coastal Bend College. Again, that's David Ortiz, Arena Football League player from Santa Maria. David, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good one, man. Be safe.
You too.